And a big story this hour, the 56th Goods and Services Tax, the GST Council meeting is underway in New Delhi. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is chairing that meeting. The agenda is to discuss one of the biggest tax overhauls since the GST regime that was rolled out in the year 2017. The main agenda for the meeting includes proposals to simplify GST rates with a focus on the 5% and 18% slabs. There are also plans to eliminate the 12% and 28% slabs, rationalizing the tax structure. Let's listen in to what the Andhra Pradesh Finance Minister had to say ahead of that meeting.
The Prime Minister of India on August 15th has announced from the Red Fort that there is going to be a Diwali gift to the people of this great nation. And as an alliance party, we are supporting, from Andhra Pradesh, we are supporting the major reforms in the GST sector which are being proposed by Government of India. Most of them are going to help the common man and poorest of the poor, to bring down the burden on the common man. As a Telugu Desam party, President Supremo, Mr. Sri Nara Chandrababu Naidu has taken a stand to support the reforms initiative. This is going to be a major step in reviving the poor man's economy, further upbringing the positive change in their lives.
All right, it's time to take a look at what has been proposed for some crucial sectors, and that's where you, the viewer, really would be interested to also know more about. The small car segment is expected to experience a potential reduction. This will bring down the tax on small cars to 18% from the current 28%. That's what the proposal is as of now. Also, this might encourage a larger number of individuals, particularly first-time buyers and middle-class households, to purchase cars. Additionally, it stimulates car sales and provides support to the automobile manufacturer. All right, moving on now, we are also talking about auto parts, seats and accessories. 28% to 18% is also on the cards. Now, services, hotels, travel is also likely to reduce to 5% from 12%. That is really a big deal when it comes to hotels and services. The other sector within this is cinema tickets, 12 to 5%. And this is for cinema tickets above 100 rupees. That is the proposed GST rate. Also, when it comes to travel, air travel, business and premium could see 18% instead of the current 12%. Now, medical items is also significant, and the proposal here is when it comes to cancer drugs to bring it down to nil from 12%. That's going to be a huge drop. And drugs and medicines, including instruments, the rate is proposed to slash to 5%, and that is in terms of the proposal of taxes. We also have Shrimi joining us live. She's the Bureau Chief of NDTV Profit. Shrimi, that big meeting is underway, but there could be a lot of differences that we see within when it comes to the finance ministers and the central minister there. What are we expecting over the next 2 days in terms of what some of those states might want and not want?
Well, still the early hours of the meeting, and what we are picking up at this point is that both centre and state are deliberating upon Pillar 3, that is ease of compliance for businesses, how to make it more simpler and accessible for, in terms of businesses having GST registration, the refunds, how to make it, more simpler, make it more automated, and of course the pre-filing of the return is what Pillar 3 is talked about. Now remember, the Pillar 3 is among the 3 important pillars which Centre has proposed to GST Council, and as a part of the next generation reform. And of course, the proposal include host of issues. One is, of course, moving lot of your daily consumable item to nil category, exempting completely those from the GST. Then you have some household and essential item right from your namkeen to ghee to paneer, all those are shifting to and could shift to perhaps in the lower 5% bracket, which is currently in the 12 and 18%. Small car, as you mentioned, those having engine below 1200 cc and motorbikes below 350 cc, which is currently at 28% plus cess, that could also move to 18%. But a 40% special rate is also we need to keep in mind, which is there on the 5 to 7% item. Those all your luxury high-end cars plus high-end bikes, and of course the tobacco and cigarettes, which they're talking about. But two important issues we need to highlight here. One, state have been talking about the revenue loss around 60 to 80,000 crore is what anticipated after this massive rate rigging exercise. And of course on the additional levy, which they are talking about over and above 40% rate on certain items, especially on the high-end luxury cars.
Shrimit, thanks for joining me live from outside the venue of that meeting. We'll keep coming back to you for more. But now I'm going to cut across to Tamanna Inamdar, Managing Editor, NDTV Profit. She joins us on this big story. Tamanna, the timing is interesting, isn't it? GST restructuring now, just as Trump's tariff war is playing out. Is the tariff hike playing any role here?
Well, the official word is no, that something like this takes time to develop. This is a plan in place. GST has been around in its current form and fashion for quite a few years, and it was time to hit the reboot phase. But you cannot ignore the fact that at a time when India is under a tariff attack and the clamor has been for India to bring up its own version to boost the economy, this power dose has come in. So if at the very least it's coincidental, at least it is the right timing from the economy point of view. Because the hit of the tariffs is expected to be between 0.5% to 1%, depending on the range of what people say. I spoke to Fitch this morning that says it can be as low as 10 basis points on the Indian GDP. On the other hand, the kind of boost that GST is expected to give consumption will give some relief at one end or the other. Obviously, it's not going to be a complete mitigating factor. So, for example, exporters who can no longer export will be hit one way or the other, even if GST comes down. But in the larger picture, the GST cut can definitely mitigate some of the pain coming in from tariffs. So, the timing is interesting and it's very, very good from the economy's point of view.
We hear consumers are deliberately delaying purchases, Tamanna, betting on a friendlier tax grid ahead. Is that hurting the demand on the ground for now?
It is, Vedika. And in fact, we've been speaking to a lot of companies here at NDTV Profit and they are telling us this. So, for example, we spoke with Blue Star a few days ago and they've already come off a very poor summer season. Early monsoons have ruined that couple of months boost that they usually get for them. They are talking about people postponing their purchases because think about it. If you're going to get a huge discount as a consumer on an AC, a TV, a refrigerator, why would you go and stick your neck out? For car companies as well and for car dealerships, that pain point, for auto dealerships, that pain point also exists because people are expecting huge discounts. What is working for auto dealers, although, is that people are willing to come in and book. They are getting more footfalls into the dealerships because that interest has been spurred. So people can come in, they can book and maybe hope for lower GST rates. And that's across the board. Think about it. Insurance will get cheaper. A lot of the products that you and I buy will get cheaper. So where those decisions can be postponed, they are being postponed, which will be a short-term hit. But what we are hearing is that the government is very, very keen to make sure that this comes into place quickly. And what we are reporting is it could be as early as 22nd September, which means you'll get a bulk of the festive season. Hopefully, in the bigger picture, over the quarter, it will balance things out.
Now, festive season is around the corner. Sales are critical, as we know, for India's economy. Will this GST rejig actually revive consumption, or is the optimism here overdone, Tamanna?
We've been speaking to companies and we did a show yesterday on the channel, Vedika. We asked them out of a range of 10, what do you think is going to be the impact for your company? They all said 15 and 20 out of 10. So they're very, very optimistic. I don't think that the optimism is overdone. It will definitely boost festive sales.
The big question is short-term pain, Tamanna, for long-term gain. Will the government revenues take a hit immediately? Are we expecting that? And can the centre afford this at this stage?
So here is the math and how it's being projected by a host of research firms, that the tax revenue will get hit up to 0.5%, perhaps, but you will see overall consumption also getting boosted, and the GDP will have up to a 20 basis point up move. So yes, it is a short-term pain and a very short-term pain. On top of that, if the tariff issue gets resolved by November, which is what we are projecting, then maybe you will have Sone Pe Suhaga.
And Tamanna, the next 2 days, as we know, of negotiations will be crucial. Where are you expecting the toughest pushback, if I may, and how messy could this consensus be, given that you have representatives from all states there?
There are two sticking points, if I was to really drill it down. One is on what happens to sin goods like tobacco, cigarettes essentially, and the other is what happens to higher end electric vehicles. So these are the two sticking points. Now on sin goods, what was happening thus far is that the GST level was at the highest, but states could put their own cess on top. Now the state cess bit goes away. So where do they get that kind of income from? So what will be the final taxation on some of these products is the big question mark. The second one is on electric vehicles, because what states are asking for is that any electric vehicle above the price point of 20 lakh rupees be taxed at 18% instead of 5% right now, because all EVs get taxed at 5% to incentivize EV adoption. The central government is of the view that don't do that, let more people get into electric vehicles first instead of taxing them higher. So we'll have to wait and see what the outcome is of these primary two sticking points.
Tamanna, the industry will be asking a very direct question. When will the new rates really come into effect?
Well, it has to go through a process. So even in the best case scenario, at the end of the evening of the 4th, if there is a complete unanimity between all stakeholders that yes, the new rates are okay, it'll still have to be notified, then states will have to actually implement it. We are hearing September 22nd, but give or take a month here and there for it to hit ground. Nevertheless, the festive season is going to be quite joyful, and I think companies will start passing it on because they will not want to miss the bus.
The good news is that the festive season will be joyful. Tamanna, before I let you go, my last question. When you look at this sector by sector, who are the big winners of this reset, and who do you think will feel shortchanged by the end of this?
The biggest winners are clearly consumer durable companies and auto companies, because the indication and the intent is to make aspirational goods more accessible to more Indians. So essentially more Indians should be able to buy ACs, TVs, refrigerators, mobile phones, laptops. So that's going to be one category of companies which are going to win big. You're going to see big winners in the auto sector, especially a company like Maruti. That's why you see the stock price also moving up. Cheaper cars are going to get even more cheaper relatively, and the categorization of GST implementation is going to change from the size of the engine to the price point, so that's a big boost for them. The other ones I would say is even the travel sector. If there is a differential pricing for the GST applied on hotel room rates under 7,500, you could see a boost to travel. Many more sectors, and of course all of those details available on the entire network, but these are the top 2 or 3 that I would point out to.